Our planet was formed about 4.5 billion years ago. However, humans, or Homo sapiens, have only been here for about 200,000 years. If we were to shrink all history of Earth in 1 year, modern humans have only been here for the last 30 minutes. However, it's in this brief time frame in which humans have been able to develop languages, science, philosophy, all the fine arts. And it's also in the field of medicine in which humans have also been able to make big advances. All records of ancient civilizations show that one way or another, our ancestors were in touch with plants and minerals to make remedies and cures for all sorts of ailments and afflictions. All these forms of medicine were passed down through generations and refined through the centuries. And whereas all traditional forms of medicine differ from each other slightly, there's always a few similarities between them. However, the aspect that amazed me the most, and the whole reason I decided to jump and dive into this topic, is that common denominator, that mysterious concept that you can find in every traditional medicine system throughout history. Ancient civilizations were usually separated by vast geographical and chronological distances, so it's fair to say that most of them remained unaware and non-influenced by each other. And yet, they all have this concept. The ancient Chinese called it qi, the Japanese called it ki, the Indian called it prana, the Mayan called it chulel, the Egyptians called it sekem, and more recently in the 20th century it was called orgone by a prominent psychoanalyst. Time passed, and today it's almost impossible for you to remain isolated. All societies, one way or another, influence each other. However, this concept is still there and is widely used in the world of traditional alternative medicine. Today it's called vital force. But what exactly is this concept? What exactly is this entity that has been there for eons? What exactly is the vital force?
Oh, that is a difficult one to start off with. What is the vital force? Well, I think that's definitely something that is different for every person. But the one way that I try and explain it to patients and to students is imagine, or using the analogy of an engine. So an engine is, it has its housing, it's got all of its camshafts, it's an actual physical thing. And however, it's going to stay this immobile physical thing without petrol. So the petrol that goes into it that actually animates the structure. And I think that's a lot to do with us, is that you look at us, we are just made up of large amounts of water, large amounts of different minerals, calcium, different hormones and all sorts of different structures. But without the vital force, it wouldn't be animated.
The vital force is an intangible thing, really, but without it, you're dead. And Hahnemann said that quite clearly in the Organon, that you take away the vital force, that's the life gone. Because you can get all the body parts that you need to make up a human being and slap them together, and it's nothing there.
Ooh, vital force is the energy that infuses all living things. It's a subtle energy force. It's not something that we have yet got the instruments that clearly measures very well, but that's not to say it's not there. It's just because it hasn't been measured very well. Even from a biochemical point of view or a biological point of view, that creates that connection, that synergy between cells and allows them to coordinate together and all of that kind of stuff. That's the vital force.
So to the ancient alchemists, they looked at things in that kind of way, which was you had the physical body, you had the life force or the vital force that animates the physical body, and then within those two you've got the soul or the consciousness, which to many people of different faiths and things like that, they believe that is immortal. But basically when the vital force leaves the body, that's when death occurs. So the vital force is something that can change. It can change with the environment that you're working in. People often talk about going into office buildings and things like that with lots of lighting and air conditioning, and it lacks vitality, it lacks that connection with the natural world, and that's really what feeds and supplies that vital force. So I think, yeah, it's life force. It is life.
Is that innate internal regulatory force which drives our spirit, our body, and our emotions and mental functioning. It's feeling good, it's looking good. It's when people say to you, you look really well, you exude wellness, and everything's 10 out of 10.
So when we use the concept of vital force, this is a word that's synonymous with the term vitality or energy or spirit, and it's known by different modalities, as for example Chinese medicine uses the term qi to describe something like vital force. In Ayurvedic medicine they use the word prana. So it's basically just life itself, or this term of energy.
It's very hard to put into words, because the problem with putting it into words is that I feel that somehow that devalues it, because words don't really do it justice.
It's the place that you're in, it's the state of mind you're in. And another way I can explain it to you is you have a person who comes to you with an illness. You ask them and you ask their emotions, how do they feel about it? Oh God, I don't know, it's just so bad. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take this drug, and yeah, this is it. Their vitality is low, their energy, their qi, their state of being, their mental awareness of the capability of how amazing their body is not there. It's down, it's flat, right? And this is where natural medicine, or naturopaths specifically, will actually hone in on the state of a person's vitality based on how they are responding, or what they're thinking of, or where they're planning their future to be, and start building that up. Because when you work in that domain, in the state of mind and their emotional connection to the condition, you can get better results. Because every illness has a frequency, every thought has a frequency, every aspect about a living thing as such, everything has a form of frequency, and it can either be in a favorable form as such or an unfavorable form. So when it's favorable, like love, laughter, joy, children, sunshine, that's all a high frequency. And that is what actually raises a person's vitality.
Through the 200,000 years in which humans have been on this planet, the landscape of the Earth hasn't changed that much. Even in the last 1,000 years, you could argue that nothing much really happened. However, this is no longer true in the 20th century. In the last 100 years, profound changes have taken place to our planet and civilization. The world became a much smaller place and human population increased dramatically. In 1910, there were 1.6 billion humans on this planet. Today, the number is close to 7 billion. But not only the Earth is struggling to catch up with these violent changes and non-sustainable practices, our own bodies are also having a hard time dealing with this modern food that also has changed a lot in the last 100 years.
You consider that evolution to where we are now, which is we sit in armchairs, we sit at desks all day. From the moment that we wake up, you're programmed to just brush your teeth, have breakfast, go to work. And you'll stay at work for your 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, however many hours it is for which particular job that we have today. And what are you doing? You're sitting down, you know, and you might get your lunch break and you can go sit outside for a bit of a walk. But we're being conditioned now to just be more sedate, to relax more, because we're so stressed in the life that we have. We work so much. In many cases, people are working 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And you would think, wow, using all that energy, thinking and working at a desk, let's be honest, guys, it's not like going to the gym. It's not like going for a walk. You know, it's that simple. Is that it's not just, you know, the basic dietetic equation of calories in versus calories out. It's not that. There's a lot of other mitigating factors. There's stress. Stress is a huge part here because of its ability to, you know, muck with cortisol levels and all these type of things. But, you know, look at the kids. I look at the kids today. Not many play sports. I remember when I was a kid, you really didn't get a choice. You went to school, you played sport, that was it. And you played a sport every season per se. So you'd have summer sports and winter sports. Now, well, you know, kids don't have to. They can do computer club or they can be in a chess club and all these other things. We're actually stopping our kids from getting the exercise that they need. But that's all together, you know, that's something that people need to be responsible for themselves. Now we start looking about the food. The food that we're actually producing now is completely different. It's completely the opposite of nature. It's the antithesis of it. It's so diametrically opposed to what is natural. As we look at all of these changes to our work, to this sedentary lifestyle that we basically lead now, and to the food supply.
It's affecting our health probably more than we know. But, you know, the high refined carbohydrate, high preservative, high fat, as well as the high sodium content in a lot of fast food is killing people as we speak. So people are getting fatter from the trans fats and the refined carbs. Their teeth are rotting from the sugars they put in the burgers and the breads. Their cholesterol rates are going up with the trans fats that their body doesn't know what to do with. Their waistlines are growing. You know, this stuff's almost addictive. The salt is oxidizing their arteries. It's rubbish. My grandfather used to say, that's killing people, that food.
I don't know whether I'm making it too simple, but I think it's our obsession with sugar. Sugar is just so amazingly ubiquitous. Everything is loaded with sugar. You know, and we see sugar in a very positive way. As in, it's quite common for people to, you know, say, oh, you know, I need a sugar hit, and that somehow be seen as a positive thing, that yes, you'll feel better by having a sugar hit. However, without really acknowledging that that's going to put a very large stress on our body, because our body doesn't like having a high blood sugar level. It does whatever it can, part of this homeostatic process, to bring that blood sugar level down as quickly as possible. And so of course that then drops your blood sugar down into your boots, so then you go, oh, I need another one. So very quickly people finish up on this sugar merry-go-round. which just feeds itself. And there are so many chronic conditions, obesity being one of them, that is driven by sugar.
The whole reason that we're seeing such an increase in infertility really goes back to poor diet choices. Fast foods and things like that, or produce that has chemicals in it, but also if we look at things like chicken that's been pumped full of steroids and hormones, these all contribute to female reproductive disorders. So we're seeing a lot higher incidence in polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, and all these sort of reproductive conditions that contribute to infertility. So I think diet is definitely a big factor to consider when looking at a patient that has infertility. But also a lot of the times infertility is also linked to stress. I mean, there's an increased stress in today's society. So by using things like flower essences and counselling techniques, if we can actually also work on the psychological aspects of fertility, so what is the metaphysical or what is the psychological blockage that's happening, this can also work in increasing fertility.
For the first time in our genomic history, we're being subjected to foods that our genes don't recognise. And when our genes get messages from food that they don't recognise, they do unrecognised activities in the body. So they turn on all manner of mechanisms that are abnormal because the genes have no coping mechanism for this. It's a stressor that they've never encountered. Not like an apple. They know what an apple is and what to do with it because evolutionarily we evolved with that food and our gene sequence evolved around that. But the game's changed, but our genes haven't changed yet. So we're in that dealing with artificial food mode where our genes are doing all kinds of weird things they've never done before and giving us things like obesity we've never seen before, epidemics we've never seen before of diabetes, of heart disease, of osteoporosis, of rheumatoid arthritis. The list goes on. What I personally suspect is behind that is the food we're eating. Plants were here on Earth millions of years before humans evolved, and the human genome evolved with plants. So we adapted to their chemicals, their properties, their vitality, and each of our cells have receptors for those chemicals in plants. So we have an affinity for things in the natural world because evolutionarily we evolved around those different kingdoms. Another example of that would be biophilia, and studies into interactions with nature show that that interaction has a positive influence on the human being on a number of levels, and to discount a vital force beyond the physical would be, I think, not giving that credence.
Everything that our body is and does relies on nutrients and nutritional value. And if you don't have the right ingredients there, then nothing else is going to work. So if you're missing the cofactor in a biochemical pathway, no amount of you stimulating that biochemical pathway, whether it be with a herb or drug or whatever, is going to replace the fact that there's a cofactor missing. And so nutrition is the foundation from a physical point of view to good health.
And looking at what to incorporate in a healthy diet, you want to make sure that you have as many fruits and vegetables as possible, particularly the brighter the colour, the better. We want to increase our antioxidants because these will help combat things like our free radicals. And free radicals are something that can be produced in the body on exposure to stress, pollution, certain chemicals, poor diet, for example. Free radicals are basically unstable electrons or unstable cells in the body, and what they can do is contribute to things like premature aging, tissue damage, and certain diseases such as cancer. So by eating a diet high in antioxidants, particularly found in your fruits, vegetables, berries, we can actually help combat and minimize these free radicals in the body. Your good fats are broken into your monounsaturated fats and your polyunsaturated fats. So examples of monounsaturated fats are things like your nuts, so your almonds, your walnuts, macadamia nuts for example, your avocados, and olive oils. Your polyunsaturated fats are found in seafoods, so fish, salmon, and in oils such as safflower oil and sunflower oil.
Start with food as your medicine, then see if you need some form of medicinal supplementation, be it herbal, nutritional, or the allopathic, because this is your way of life. This is what you need to do every day. Without that, and only relying on the medication aspect, you're never going to be in control of your own life. You're never going to empower yourself, and really the healing is not going to be fully there. Has a big role.
Another radical change within the last 100 years, it's been the way in which we approach health. Modern medicine in the form of pharmaceutical drugs is today a $1 trillion a year worldwide industry. The pharmaceutical industry is, and has been for years, the most profitable of all businesses in the United States. The United States alone accounts for almost half of the global market of pharmaceutical drugs every year. Ironically, the richest country in the world, and the one that spends the most money on pharmaceutical drugs every year, is also the sickest nation on the planet. The concept of a pill for every ill and symptom suppression without addressing the root cause, common of modern medicine, has clearly failed to deliver a healthy society. Statistically, 1 out of every 3 people you know will die of cancer. 1 other will die of heart disease or diabetes, which is also quickly becoming epidemic, even on children. These non-communicable diseases were almost non-existent 100 years ago, and they still are in societies secluded from the modernized world that still rely mostly on their own forms of traditional medicine and agriculture. In April 2011, the European Union passed a directive called Traditional Herbal Medicine Products Directive, effectively making illegal the use of natural medicine, including herbal medicine, Chinese traditional medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, among many others, unless they obtain a license, which in the vast majority of cases is so expensive, only pharmaceutical companies can afford. Traditional herbal medicine is highly sophisticated. It is the product of centuries of discovery, learning, and refinement. However, the base for this ban is the claim that traditional medicine is non-scientific. But is it really?
Schopenhauer, I think, in the 1800s, and he said that all truth passes through 3 stages. So, first, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And third, it is found to be self-evident. And I think that's the type of evolution that herbal medicine, that many complementary medicines are currently going through, is that, the only thing is, where are we at? Are we still in the first, the second? Are we moving into the third phase where people are starting to acknowledge it? I think to an optimist, they'd like to think that. And I'd like to think optimistically, but maybe to the pessimist, we're only entering the first stage, that we are still being ridiculed. And wherever you travel around the world, there are establishments that will ridicule naturopathic medicine or complementary medicine. And in truth, the only thing that's going to reveal that is time, to see where we're going. When we look at the history of herbal medicine that we know of, so we can confirm through burial findings that have been found in, I think it was Shandana, near modern day Iraq, that human beings at that time have been using, or at least were knowledgeable about, so many different types of herbal medicine. So 60,000 years is a long time. So looking at how that's evolved over the ages, modern science now, when we look at when modern science came about, it started with the Copernicus and finding out that, we aren't the center of the universe as we had been told. And then suddenly science exploded, and you had, Sir Isaac Newton, all of these, Boyle, all of these massive brains that just came to the fore, and science started running away with this newfound knowledge and newfound information and what I can do with it, and I can find out all the mysteries of the universe. All the while, for 60,000 or 58,000 years, that had all been herbal medicine had been naturally progressing, had been naturally evolving. So really, when you look at things like the scientific method, experimentation, and double-blind, placebo-controlled studies, it might not have been to that standard, but let's be honest, that's how they did things. So they would, trial different herbs, they would experiment with them on different types of things, and hey, if it killed the patient, well, I know not to use that one again. But it was trial and error. It was experimentation. So to think that science didn't come about until the scientific revolution is nonsense, and anyone that tells you this is foolish, because the same ideas, the same concepts that we still hold dear today in the scientific model have been been used all the way since Aristotle, since the Pythagoreans and Hippocrates and all of these great minds. They were scientific minds. I mean, it was Hippocrates that first said and separated disease from the gods. He sat there and said, hey, it's not the gods that are striking down these plagues and afflictions on us. It has to be something environmental. So for him to actually reason that, to use rationality to work that out, shows scientific method. So is it scientific or is it non-scientific? It's both.
Traditional understanding is being supported by current research. That's what I think is interesting. There are so many times when you look at a particular herb and you start doing research on that herb, and the research backs up the traditional understanding. That's the bit that's really interesting. And that's where you think, well, of course we have to listen to this traditional understanding, because there's a lot of history involved in using herbs in that particular way. But then when you start doing research on it, and that tradition is supported, well, it really gives it extra credibility, I suppose.
The World Health Organization states that over 70% of the world's population rely on herbal medicine as a primary source of healthcare. Not as a secondary, not as an adjunct, not as complementary, no. That's all they got. That's the only choice they've got. That's pretty profound. How can you just delete that? How can you just extirpate that from the history? Science is wonderful. I love science. It has this ability to reveal the deepest inner secrets about a subject. And I think that's fascinating. But the problem with science is that it has these blinkers on. So it can sit there and scrutinize to the most amazing detail every single little thing about a particular topic. I mean, look at modern medicine, for example. There's not one person or one physician that can treat everything. Suddenly there's specialists in everything. So you've got gastroenterologists, ear, nose, throat surgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, each just involved with this small little piece of the larger puzzle. And that's representative of science. It can put under its microscope this amazing gaze, this penetrating gaze, to extract all of the information out of a given subject. But the biggest problem is, with those blinkers, it doesn't have the big picture. And so when you look at the traditional concepts, these philosophical concepts that herbal medicine, that a lot of the complementary therapies that come from, that has been evolving over time, they look at things with the big picture. They look at how something affects the entire body, not just a part of it. And that's something that gives me hope, because if we can harness this amazing power that science currently has, and this technology is just going to continue to evolve, it's going to continue to get more powerful, we're going to continue to get a more profound understanding of the human body and how we fit into the universe. But if we don't ask the bigger questions, if we can't sit back and look at things in totality, then it's all for naught. Herbal medicine, I think out of all of the complementary medicines, is probably one of the ones that's most studied. So when we look at things like a lot of the randomized double-blind placebo-controlled studies done on ginkgo biloba, that have been done on St. John's wort, there's a lot of herbal medicines that actually have scientifically proven evidence to show that they work for a myriad of conditions. So the question then is, are we trying to fit the round peg in the square hole? Which is how I think we are sometimes. We're trying to make these plants, these herbal medicines that are completely complex. They are so much more complex chemically than their pharmaceutical cousins. that we're trying to push them into this model to work and they don't fit. So you're looking at some herbs that have 60, 70, 100, 200 different phytochemicals in varying concentrations, and science is sitting there making us pick, well, what's the one ingredient that does it? For some herbs that might work, but for others it won't, and it's the relationship that they have, that synergy together, that actually is the medicine. It's that variability that they have that is the medicine. And I think that it's wonderful to sit there and try and look at isolated constituents and things like that, but that detracts from what herbal medicine is. Because when we go back to that discussion about vitality, about vital force, you can't find vitality in a Panadeine Fort. You can't find vitality in a Prozac tablet. When you look at modern medicine evolved from us. That's the truth. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine? Well, not really. He was a herbalist. He used simple tools. He used and understood the vital force. He knew simple things about hygiene. He was just as much a part of complementary therapy or natural medicine as he is to the modern medical practice.
These kind of modern medicines, as people identify with, have side effects, unfortunately. Yes, there is a place for them, I will say, and I'm comfortable to say, because we need to use modern medicine for emergencies, for that quick first aid. We need to have that. We need our intensive care units at the hospitals. It's fabulous. This is where I believe we can work together. We are seeing more and more, and doctors are saying that. The ABC Health Report actually did a massive interview with a collective group of doctors, and they also did a survey with regards to it, and they were the ones who actually came out with the overall conclusion, and they defined it as postmodern views, and that was how clients are so dissatisfied, the adverse effects that they were getting from modern medicine, that it wasn't the magic bullet that everybody claimed it would be, and the ongoing different diseases that were coming about from modern medicine. These side effects, and you often see it. I have a client here who initially started off with one form of medication. I'll pick on statins, for example, used extensively for lowering cholesterol levels. Well, the compromise of that is it depletes coenzyme Q10. Now that is such an important component or nutrient as such for every cell in the body. And what do they end up experiencing? Initially, anything from oozing out, wax excessively from the ear, to aches and pains, and then muscle wastage. So of course then they've got to come in and try and address that if it's possible for them to be addressed. Well, for us, we say, if you're being depleted on that, let's provide it, coenzyme Q10 as such.
Maybe on a pharmaceutical medication, which is very narrow in its action, and then you can support it with herbal medicine to support what's happening around that and mitigate the side effects. That's where I think the combination can work particularly well, and I think it's an area that we really haven't investigated particularly much. But it's a particular interest to me is how herbal medicine and naturopathy can mitigate the side effects of conventional medicine.
Modern medicine, is something we can draw on when we need it, and I think natural medicine's something we need to draw on every day because we don't want to need Western medicine. Herbalists use, safe medications, so we only select herbs that have been shown to be safe. So I think that's important when treating people. The other benefits of herbal medicine are, herbal medicine, it acts slowly but surely. It has a gradual, gentle, usually a gradual, gentle onset of action, and it seems to fire the mechanisms of vitality and homeostasis within people gently.
And this is the part that I find really touches the clients, and it touches many clients who go and see naturopaths, because they've never been given the opportunity to say, how does that make you feel? What are your thoughts on your condition? What do you think is happening with you? Can you make the connection of when this started? They've never been asked that by all the specialists that's out there. Everything is based on pathology test, which yes, I do use, because again, I need to find out the physical body what's happening. Or it's been based on ultrasounds, or x-rays, or CT scans, or MRIs. But nobody's actually asked their heart, their mind, right? How are you feeling? How do you feel that you could take this? You know, are you ready to literally just surrender to it and go, okay, this is it. They said I have 2 years. Oh well, you know, I might as well keep drinking it. Or are you going to go, no, I've got so much to live for. So when I'm looking at, let's say for example, we're treating a condition, we look at psoriasis. I explain the physiological aspect, the patho, the reasoning, the deficiencies, the treatment. Say, okay, now have a think about it. What's in their mind? What is happening in their heart? Why would the largest organ, the skin, be riddled with such an appearance? You know, what's actually happening? What are they feeling about themselves? Are they really that repulsed about who they are? Because that's the message that they're giving themselves. And you keep feeding every cell in your body that kind of negative thought, it manifests.
So I can't think of a group that would not benefit from naturopathy or herbal medicine. Really, I mean, everyone can. It would be very hard to see, to consider that there's a group that wouldn't benefit. It's just benefiting in what way?
It's like a renaissance, if you will. We're coming back into flavour at the moment, where everyone has a naturopath or a nutritionist or a herbalist as part of their healthcare regime. I think that's important. I think that it's only going to become more so. And I would like to think that in the next 20 years, that integrative model will be evolving. I'd like to think that we're going to start putting better foods into our hospitals, because God knows you can't get better from eating some of that stuff. Get some food, you know, like mum cooks when you're sick. That's the stuff I want to eat when I get sick, not this cardboard that you give me. You know, bring nutritionists, bring herbalists into the hospital system.
So that's what fascinates me about it. It's the rediscovery of medicines that we've always been connected to, yet we've lost that connection by and large recently, and you know, I'd like to be a part of that reconnection.
The most important thing about healthcare, patient outcomes, patient health, the return of that patient to good health.
So the role of exercise and the role of meditation is like the yin and yang, they're inseparable. They really need to be a part of your everyday life. And in that, I'm going to add another one, Carlos, and it's called recreation. You've got to play, exercise, and do the meditation. My form of meditation every day is when I walk on the ocean. All right? Some people will go, oh, but you're not sitting down, you know, you're not doing the pose and everything. I'll do that at times when I want to. You know, I generally do it as a part of a ritual for me. But it's actually being out there, being on the ocean, walking up and down, you know, enjoying the sunshine. And I tune in and I go, sugars, I'm not thinking of anything. Oh yeah, it's my meditation's kicking in. And allow. Exercise, I'm already incorporating it in there. Every day, there's got to be some form of a physical activity that they enjoy. And play? Well, you got to play. You got to bring the little child out. You got to laugh. You got to have some fun. Life is becoming so serious for so many people that, you know, they're actually, you can see the indentations in them. You can see the hunching over. You know, when was the last time people actually walked barefoot in the grass and got bindies in them? Oh, I'm still trying to remove mine on mine now. You know, just have fun. Get on a swing. Become a child. That is medicine for the body. That is medicine for the mind, and that is medicine for the soul.